Hi there, it's Shmalane back with Scrapbook Remix and picking up on all those pink and green layouts that came from the page kits you saw in the last video. So in that segment I showed you 4 different page kits all based on Country Picnic, a pink and green collection from Pebbles. And then in this prompt that goes along with this video, there are 4 layouts and they all follow exactly the same format. So I'm going to take you through one of them from start to finish, but these are the first 3 you saw in the prompt. So this one with the two sides of one Country Picnic print in the background, plus the multicolored print here and a stripe in the middle, and then 2 little clusters of embellishment with the little translucent heart, the Adore die cut, some flowers, resin flowers, then some of those little die cut elements from a sheet, butterfly punches, and little crystals, everything that I used down here that I repeated in some way at the top. So the ribbon is there again, the green staples are there in both places, the twine, the flowers, the crystals, everything just starts in one area and then the smaller pieces come up to the top. So I repeated that same technique, and I've also done the measurements of the paper exactly the same. So each of these layouts has 2 landscape 4x6 photos on one mat, and then this piece, these 2 pieces in the background with a strip in the middle. Everything is exactly the same. But this is what I really love about working out of order but keeping my pages in order, because I can use this same outline of a page, this same exact format, and the 2 layouts will look completely different. But if they were in the same album, side by side, this might not, it would be very obvious that it was exactly the same. But because these are different themes, the pictures are different events and they're separated on the timeline, so they're not going to go in the same albums for me, then I can use that same design in more than one time, and you're not going to notice it because aside from me showing them all to you here, you're never going to see them side by side. They're always going to be separate in separate books. And the supplies are all very different, so it's only when you see them side by side that you would go, oh, actually, that's exactly the same page design. So that's one of the things I really love about creating pages out of chronological order, because I can work on any topic anytime, and then I can mix it up. So if 2 pages look too similar, I can put them in different albums and it will all work. So this one, I actually started with that craft pink polka dot background and ended up without a lot of Country Picnic here, but there is this hot pink was Country Picnic, then some scenic route, crate, and these butterflies are also Pebbles but from a different collection, some studio calico, some October afternoon, some Keezy art, but really liked how this all came together. And because this was for my travel album, needed to include some cameras. All of my travel from this particular trip, all of the pages in that album are on craft cardstock, and they have at least one camera in the design somewhere. So I carried that through on this page, even though it's quite pink and green and a bit spring-like in the color scheme. And then this one, taking that pink and green and adding a different color to twist it. So this one has purple, but still that same framework. Still 2 4x6 landscapes on mat with the papers in exactly the same place, exactly the same measurement, but different embellishments this time. So we were talking about knowing your level of cute, and this is the cutesiest of the 3, and this is probably the most sophisticated, because everything, I didn't end up adding the more cartoony or doodly heart shapes. I added the ones that were a bit more grown up and a little bit more serious. This one I think is in between. It has a little bit more sophistication in the patterns that are chosen, but there's still some very youthful, whimsical things here. These little quizzes and the little butterflies are definitely a little bit edging toward cute, but wood veneer a bit more grown up, and the paint swatches a bit more grown up. So a little bit of a mix there. And then this one is quite cutesy. Lots of little hearts, actual little cupcakes, and I decided once I'd added the cupcake paper and this giant cupcake die cut, I might as well throw any cupcake embellishment I had to hand to the page. So I added some little glittery cupcakes, and there's just a lot of cupcake cuteness going on. There's scalloped edges, there's tiny little hearts. It's very, very much on the cute scale. So those are three of the pages in this prompt, and that leads me to the remaining kit with that set of photos that I showed you earlier. So these were in the Spot Your Style worksheet. So I have these two from a theme evening at a museum where everyone was dressed in these Japanese fancy dresses. And one is a close-up of the dress, and this has like Easter bunnies and all sorts of cutesy little details. And then one of a group of girls posing that evening. So I have those two 4x6 photos, and then I had the pink and green floral print, that really soft pink, and the Bow Bunny dark green ledger. Now I also had that option of the green chevron, but I don't think that I'm going to use this one. I think I'm going to stick with the darker green. I've also pulled out all the little leftovers I have of the rest of the country picnic and the cardstock colors that I had to coordinate. So I have a little bit more of some of these pinks and greens and the little hearts. And then I had two options for the background cardstock, either green or pink. So I'll use one for the back of the page and one for the photo mat. And then if you noticed, all of those pages, I went ahead and used exactly the same letter stickers on all of them, even though I had changed the color scheme around. So I have those same letters for this time as well. That's the mini market for the small ones, and these polka dot thickers for the large letters. Then these were the first three embellishments I'd started with when I put the page kit together. So I have that pink Japanese doily, the giant wood veneer butterfly, and these layered stickers from Follow Your Heart by My Mind's Eye. And then realizing after I'd done the other three pages that they need a little bit more embellishment than this. So I went to see what else I had that would match what I'd already pulled out, and I had this much of the chipboard that goes with this same Follow Your Heart collection. So I've pulled that out as well. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this whole page. I'm following exactly the same format, so you can use the same measurements and give it the same outline a go. Because I'm going to use the dark green solid print, I'm going to use the pink cardstock as my background option, and then my first step is to add the two pieces of pattern paper to fill up most of that space. I'm just going to have a frame of the pink around the edge. So these two pieces, they are, the smaller piece is 4 inches wide and the larger one is 7.5. So then I can go ahead and attach these. There's just half an inch off the length, so this is 4 by 11.5. So that there is a 1/4 inch cardstock border all the way around the page. And I'm inking everything in the same color. So if you're going to ink, just choose what color you want to use at the beginning, and then every box you cut can be inked in the same color. So in this case, I'm using a dark brown ink. Now, if this join in the middle isn't perfect, it's okay. For example, here, I need to take this one out just a little bit to make this other side line up. But that gap is going to be okay because the next piece is a little strip to cover that join, and it's the full 12-inch width, and it's a perfect use for a branding strip. So you just take a piece that has colors that will match and cover up where the two papers come together. So it makes the measurement a little bit more forgiving and just cleans that up a little bit. So there's the background. Then I need those horizontal blocks that are going to go across the middle. The taller one is 6 inches by 10 inches. And these are going to go in the bottom half of the page. So when I'm looking for a good composition with a variety of boxes, I look at the very center of the page and then I move in one direction. So in this case, I'm centered in the middle of the page, but I'm moving down a bit. And then I'm going to adhere that right there. So I'm taking that idea that your attention might go to the middle, and I'm moving it ever so slightly. The shorter piece on top of that one is 4 inches tall and 11 inches wide. So these can layer up quite quickly, and then instead of looking at the center of the page, I'm looking at the center of this box. So I look at the center of the box and then I move it down a little bit. Move it in one direction or the other. So just make sure that's straight. So I have those 2 layers there. Then I have my photograph. And just like all the others, 2 4x6 landscape photos put together on one photo mat, and this is cut from the green cardstock. And you can tell that if I'd used this with that green, that's an awful lot of green going on. So pink has that better contrast there in the background, and then to use this just as a very narrow photo mat works a bit better. And in this case, I want to make sure that the bottom edge is going below the bottom edge of the box. This way it's crossing all those layers, and I still have parts of all of the layers on show. So page comes together quite quickly at this point, and then I just know I have this area and this area to add some embellishment. The next step for each of them was to add a small border piece here. So I'll look at which patterns I have left that I haven't used yet. And I haven't used this soft pink floral, so give that one a try. And just any border punch that you like. So I'm just going to take this clean edge here, and this is a border punch by EK Success. And I don't need a huge long piece, I just need enough to fill this gap, so this will be more than enough. And the opposite side is going to be covered, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be straight or perfect or anything. What I do like to do is have a look at what you've punched and then cut the other end so the 2 are equal. So this one isn't a full half circle on this side, so I'm going to take this one in just a little bit as well, so that it ends up a bit more even. Now, in truth, the ends are probably going to end up covered up by the embellishment, and so it probably won't matter, but just wanted to show you that that's what I would do when using border punched pieces. So this gets tucked underneath this piece here, and I want enough to show so that you can see the pattern and the color, but not so that it's a huge element. So that will work. Then I need to start to build horizontally here. So it's time to start looking at my embellishments, and I know I have that doily that I wanted to include. So I'm thinking this would be quite a major element that would work there, and by having it underlap here, I can actually save that piece that's not showing and put it at the top. So I'm just going to take the whole doily and put it in the trimmer, and that way I'll be able to have a nice straight edge for the piece that I can bring up here, and I'll have this piece to come down at this point. Now, when I'm adding the adhesive, I'm putting it in the middle because I may want to be able to tuck things underneath here. And I'll add a little bit of ink to those edges there. And then I'll just tuck that underneath. And I won't do anything with this piece yet because I'll wait to see what I do here, and then it's quite easy to come back up here and just replicate it with the leftovers. So I have that large piece there. I also had that giant butterfly, which I think may be too big in this case. So let's have a look at the other embellishment options. Put the butterfly aside. see. Sometimes you can punch layered stickers like this right through the backing, but not this time. So if I want to move them around on the page, I need to cut them free. So I can start to see where they would work. And I also have these pieces from that same collection. So something horizontal like this element, and these do pop right out, and could work here. So I could bring that right over to the edge, and then perhaps one of these horizontals, and maybe even this large one here. So I'll save these two for the top and just kind of set them aside. I'll have a look down here and start inking these pieces so I can just find the right place for each of them and then go ahead and stick them down, because both layered stickers and chipboard pieces are not very forgiving with the adhesive. They tend to break if you want to pull them back up off the page. So I want to make sure that I get my placement in the right spot, exactly where I want it, because it's just a little bit more difficult to move around than some of the other products I use. So here's where I get into a case where I'm building embellishment and trying to avoid any trapped white space. So for example, if I'm going to run this piece right there and this piece about here, I'm going to end up with this gap in the middle. So that's a spot to use something like washi tape or ribbon to run a layer underneath. So I think I might just stick with the pink. No, I think I'll grab some green washi tape. Yeah, I like that better. And I'm just going to run this underneath the photo and right to the edge of the page. And now when I add these pieces, I don't have the white heart printed paper showing up again in that gap, and that will work a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding pieces. Now, I still will end up with some pieces of space that are a little bit trapped, but I can fix them in a moment. So it's not the end of the world if there's a little bit of something here or there, because I can come back in and dress up that space. So now I want this piece to touch all the layers that I have added. And now I have a spot to put my title letters. I can run those smaller letters here and the larger letters right on top of this. It's going to be quite an embellished or a tall layout, but layouts like that can work fine in a page protector. It just means that you have fewer page protectors in an album. I keep about 20 in all of my albums and have quite a few pages that are quite tall and lumpy, and it works out fine for me. So I'm going to figure out where the title is going to fit, and then I'll be able to fill in around there with smaller embellishments. With the title in place, then I do have a little bit of a gap here that I want to work with, but I can leave that for a minute and come up to the top of the page and start mirroring the same things that I've added there at the top. So I have a large horizontal piece that I'm going to put right flush to the top, and I have that doily, and I want something underneath here so that I can add a little pop dot to this and have it not just hanging off the edge of the chipboard. So perhaps washi tape would be, oh, wrong one. I was using the green. Washi tape would be a good fit for just there. But you could also use one of the pattern papers that is in the mix already. And if I had thought this through, I would have added the tape before the chipboard. But, you know, that requires thinking ahead, and I did not do that. So I just want to even out the height here so that I can have the doily go off the edge. And not end up smashed or bent or anything like that. So that will hold it up just the same height as the chipboard piece. Now I need an element that's going to be vertical and go a little bit further down the page. And I think in this case, my stickers are not a good match. I've already used some chipboard, so I don't think I need more of that. So I think what I will do is go back and cut a little bit more of the heart pattern paper. In fact, I've got some just sat at the trimmer, looking to see if that's the color of all the patterns I've got here, if that's the one I want to use. Let's have a look at that pale pink as well. No, I think that's too similar to the doily. And this was the other option, was that pale pink floral. I think the hearts will work. I think maybe I just need a little bit more width than what I had in that piece. So come back to the paper and just cut it a little bit wider. And I didn't do this on the others necessarily, but you can do this with any block that just needs a little dressing up. So just cut the ends into the pennant shape. And if you're not doing it on camera, you'll probably get it straight the first time, not like me. And so I'll add a little ink around those edges. And then layer this up here. So this way I'm mimicking that same shape from the chipboard piece in the printed design. At this point I'm nearly done, so I'm just looking to make sure that I've repeated any element that's in this area of embellishment up in this corner of the page. So I brought in another layered sticker. It was a little bit too long, so I just cut it to fit, to move the little butterfly, and that had come off this corner to that corner. I've used that same pattern here. The doilies in both places, the washi tapes in both places, there's chipboard in both places. So I'm getting a good mix of the same supplies, or the same type of supplies, repeating from the top to the bottom of the page. And now I can just come in and look at the gaps that I might want to fill with more embellishment. So I have a little line there, I have some empty space here. I could put more embellishment in this gap underneath, and up here I have quite a bit of room below the sticker where I could add things. So a gap like this is a really great place to bring in a punch, because then I can just go to any of the papers in the bits and pieces that I have left and punch something that will work. And I can use just one, or I can repeat and end up with a few. And with the double-sided papers, I can decide if I want the softer color or the brighter color that is the same from the letter stickers. And I tend to go in odd numbers, so it looks like 2 butterflies will fit well there. So then I can bring 1 up to this area of the page. So just soften those with a bit of brown ink around the edges. And that will make them look a little bit more finished, and it'll make them mix better with those stickers because they're a little bit antiqued. And then for a page like this, to finish the embellishment, I'll add a few little rhinestones. So I've brought in some of those in pink as well. And there are all sorts of different ways that you can use the rhinestones. I quite like the kind that come as a strip because then you can just look at anywhere you have a gap and stick a line of rhinestones, but I didn't have any left in a good color for this page. So I have individual rhinestones, which I tend to dot around in little triangles around the page. Or they can go in the center. You can put one in the middle of a butterfly and things like that. So in this case, I'm going to find 3 little places and make that into a triangle around the embellishment. So just 3 on that side, and then I'll come up to the top and do the same thing. So they don't need to have a really important place. Sometimes it works well that they fit on a certain element. On the cupcake page, the rhinestones are in the icing of the cupcakes in each instance. Sometimes things like that work. I think on the wedding page, I used some larger crystals and put them in the middle of the butterflies. But sometimes they can just go around the embellishment so that they just catch the light, and you don't need tons and tons of them. So a sheet like this, where it was full, will last you a long, long time because you're only using a very few per page. Now I have space to fill in my journaling, so I'm going to add that, have one last little look, and see if there's anything else I want to add into the embellishment. And here is the finished version that you see in the prompt. After I added the writing, I added most of the journaling here and a little bit up to the top. And I just made one final change, and that was to add this little heart in the middle of the title because I wanted to make it clear that it wasn't just I wasn't trying to actually write the word lollipop. It was the name of the event, and they hyphenated it, and it's spelt like this because of they're taking the name from the style of the clothing. So I just wanted to add something so that it wouldn't just look like I tried to spell lollipop and it had gone a little bit wrong. So I put the heart in the middle to make that a little bit more obvious, and that's everything finished. So that's 4 different layouts from the same collection of papers and the same format, but all very different finished pages. So lots of pink and green, but also some other colors in the mix as well, and each with a different level of cute factor, from very cutesy to quite a bit more dressy. And I think given the idea that these dresses are all very, very cute, and this one has Easter bunnies and everything, this page I actually went in a more grown-up style, and I could have used all sorts of little bunny die cuts and things like that, but I quite like it with the more floral effect, and this set of supplies could certainly go for something a little bit more formal than a fun dressy up type event. So those are the 4 pages this time. I'd love for you to give this design a whirl with whatever paper collection you would like to try, and I hope you'll share it with us on the forums. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.